Hey guys, it's Toby, and we're going to be building a gaming PC for £1,500. Let's go! Alright, before we begin, I'm going to point out that this is a direct competitor to the iMac. Now, Christmas is coming up and a lot of people are actually considering getting iMacs, but here's a prime reason why you shouldn't. This build will give you much better price to performance, and in the long run you can actually upgrade this, which means it'll be much better than any iMac that you buy right now, or in the future. Now let's begin with the Intel Core i5-4670K. This is a quad-core processor clocked at 3.4 GHz. Now this is the same processor you find in the iMacs, however the ones in the iMacs are actually underclocked, apart from the one in the iMac that actually cost about almost £2,000, which isn't worth it. Now compare that to this, which is clocked at 3.4 GHz right out of the box, and in this build we plan on going further beyond that by overclocking. The maximum clock speed that iMacs can reach is about 3.8 GHz using Intel's Turbo Boost technology. However, we can easily go beyond 4 using our CPU cooling setup, which we have here, which is a Corsair H100i. This will keep our processor nice and cool when we're overclocking. Haswell does have a reputation for heating up a little bit, however we can easily hit about 4.2, 4.1 GHz without any problem at all. Moving on to the motherboard, we have the Asus Z87-Pro. Now this is arguably one of the best motherboards for the money, and in terms of connectivity, this outdoes the iMac in every way possible. You get 6 or 8 USB 3.0 ports depending on which ones you use, compared to the iMac's 4. You get gigabit Ethernet, which is pretty standard on every motherboard. You have Wi-Fi support built into the motherboard. It supports 802.11ac, which is going to be a new standard soon in the next year or two. And as well as this, it's got a much improved UEFI BIOS, which is much better than anything you'll find on the iMac. However, the main reason we chose this board is because it can support 2 graphics cards. This means that you can be running in Crossfire or SLI and still get an amazing amount of performance for the money. And that brings us on to the graphics cards themselves. Here we have the Asus GTX 770. This is a standard Nvidia card. It's got CUDA, it's got Direct 3D support, and it's also got Shadow Play. This isn't the high-end model, this is not the 780. However, the price to performance ratio for this card compared to the 780 or even the Titan is very high, and it's strongly recommended that you get this and another one of these so you can run them in SLI, which will give you much better performance compared to an iMac, which only has a GTX 750M. That's a mobile processor in a desktop. What sense does that make? Sure, you can get it with more VRAM, but since we're getting 2 cards, that automatically compensates for it. As together, these will have 4 gigs of GDDR5 to share between them, and the only way you can get that on the iMac is by paying over £2,500. Seriously. An alternative to the GTX 770 would be the AMD R9 280X. The one we have here is from Asus. It has a custom cooling fan, which means you can overclock this beyond its stock clock to say about 1100 MHz. In terms of performance, you'll get more or less the same kind of performance from having 2 of these or having 2 of the 770s. The R9 280X does have 3 gigs of RAM though, so if you get 2 of these you're running with 6 gigs of GDDR5, which will give you marginally better performance in certain games like Battlefield 4 since it's more optimized for the R9 280X. Either way, you can't really go wrong with 2 of these cards or 2 of the 770. They'll give you much better performance than what the iMac can ever deliver. Moving on to the RAM, we have 16 gigs of G.Skill Trident. There are 2 sticks of 8, and they're clocked at 2400 MHz, which is ridiculously fast for this kind of RAM. This would be great if you ever plan on video editing or rendering or that kind of thing, and even when you're playing games it'll be enough to cache a lot of textures. Now compare this to the RAM you get in the iMac. You only get 8 gigs of RAM in the iMac as standard. You can get 16 gig, but you end up paying a lot more, and considering that you're already paying over £1,000 for one of these, 16 gigs of RAM should be a staple. Moving on to the hard drive, we're going to get a 2TB Western Digital Caviar Green. Now this should be more than enough for all of your games, all of your movies, and all of your music. And as well as this, since it's 2TB, we're already getting double the amount of storage offered than the standard iMacs. As well as this, we're also going to throw in an SSD. The SSD we have here is a Samsung 840 EVO. It's 250 gig and it's currently on sale. For the price, you can't really get an SSD better than this. You can put your Windows or Linux in it and any of your key programs, and they'll boot up really fast and close out really fast. And you can't actually get an SSD on the iMac unless you choose to buy it as an optional extra. Coming on to the power supply, we have a Corsair CXM750. This is a 750 watt power supply, which will be more than enough for our build, and as well as this, since we're overclocking, it'll be more than enough for that too. Also, if you plan on upgrading in the future, if you throw in a new graphics card or 2, it'll be more than enough for them as well. It's also 80+ bronze certified, which means you'll get clean and efficient power. And finally, coming onto the case, we have an NZXT Switch 810. This is a really large case. It would be big enough for our motherboard and both of our graphics cards, but the main reason we're choosing this case is because it looks good, and it can support our H100i. We can easily mount the H100i on the top of the case, and that means we can easily overclock our processor with no problem at all. If you'd like a more sleeker, minimalist design kind of case to challenge the iMac, you can probably use a Fractal Design R4. Again, this is really large and has good airflow. It will be big enough for our motherboard and both graphics cards, and it can also support the H100i without a problem at all. And yeah, that's it guys, thanks for listening. Leave us a like if you like this video, leave us some feedback down below in the comments. If you plan on buying any or all of these components, please use our Amazon A-Store link or the links on our website, as they will really help us grow. Don't get an iMac, build this PC instead, and subscribe for more, and we'll see you next time.